Hey everybody, I'm Katallina, and today we're here to talk about episode 1 of Dandadan. Going into the fall season, this was one of the shows that was on my list because I knew it was going to be popular and I knew there'd be lots of people who'd want to talk about it, but it wasn't really way up there for a long while among my own personal top picks. Yet, as the season drew closer and I started doing more research on what was going on and what was going to be happening, I ended up seeing a bit more about what this show was going to be about, and it started to draw me in slightly more than what I had initially thought. So my expectations went from the floor to at least being in the middle, which is where I try to keep my expectations for pretty much anything I go to watch, because with anime, for me at least, you never know what's going to be amazing going from trailers to actual release, because half the time I can't find trailers that have subtitles, and that can make it really tough to know what kind of a story that something is going to have. And even if I can find something with subtitles, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to actually translate to a good piece of media. Especially when I have to consider whether it's good for me, whether it's good for the channel, or whether it's good for both. Fortunately for all of us, I think that this first episode was super strong, and I really loved what I saw here, so we definitely have some fun things to talk about. First up, let's start by just having a brief discussion about our two main characters. I believe their names are Momo and Okarun. I hope I'm pronouncing that one right. I know his name is, well, because that was actually a punchline, but I'm gonna go with Okarun. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. And I really like both of them, and I think it's kind of cool that what we have here is kind of a dual character narrative, and I think that's going to make this interesting and unique. I like how they start out as being new to each other, and how we as viewers get to see how their actual beginning as friends, or potentially something else, actually begins. And I like the fact that although initially Momo does come in and stand up for Okarun, that initially they are more so like rivals than anything else, and it's only as they start to take their time, each of them going down these separate paths of either aliens or the ghosts and supernatural occult, that each of them kind of gets to know the other better as they talk while they walk, and see what each is like, and realize that they actually do seem to, at least to some extent, get along. I also really like the fact that in this story, the story does not waste time beating around the bush. It doesn't sit there taking a year trying to introduce them while doing nothing. It draws us into the two characters, gives us a taste of what they are like, and then immediately thrusts them into the core action of the story so that our attention is rapidly captured and held to what we are watching on the screen. I think that's absolutely brilliant. Another thing that I really like about the way that these two characters are represented in the stories that are happening to them is that the humor, which is often actually at least mildly to midly sexualized, which is going to be something that's going to be a hit or a miss for some people, let me make that clear, is something that isn't just done to Momo, it's actually something that's also done to Okarun. I thought that was very clever. I also really like the fact that each of them actually needs each other in order to fully reach their own personal development as they discover their new abilities. Momo actually needs him to come and rescue her. She can't initially help herself. And it's so cool when he, in his new cursed form, literally comes out of the freaking telephone and just goes for that guy. And I mean, he literally bites the balls of the freaking alien. It's like, what the fuck? I mean, it wasn't violent or anything. It wasn't like blood gushing everywhere, but it was funny as hell. And considering what was going on in that sequence, it took a lot of the initial tension out of that sequence and turned something that could have been really gross and really off-putting, and which still will be for some people, into something that I personally found rather amusing. And I thought that was really smart writing. But the great thing is, although Okarun gets this great entrance and everything, which was really cool. Ultimately, the situation shifts and it ends up being Momo connecting to her own internal heritage that allows her to actually tap into the powers that run in her family, and she actually gets to be involved and have agency in her own rescue. You see, I don't think that that in itself is a bad thing. I also don't think somebody being rescued by another person is a bad thing. I think that the way they used both of those things together to create a balance and to showcase both characters, especially given that this show has a dual narrative though, was brilliant. I also really like the fact that Momo's situation is about her internal struggle and her self-doubt and her memories of her grandmother and of just feeling isolation and embarrassment and everything, and moving past that to be able to reach her powers. Whereas Okarun, with his curse that he has going on, her powers and her ability to control the occult actually is helping him contain the beast, which I thought was hilarious, because if you look at the most primary archetype that is of appeal to young women in storytelling, it's usually the concept of Beauty and the Beast. And given the kind of nature of the curse that Okarun has inherited and the fact that Momo is able to help him control it, it really does fall into that archetype. And he definitely, when he is going through things, has this absolute touch her and die vibes, and I am so here for something like that. I like that. But at the same time, it's cool because while he has that and he's able to express that, and I'm sure that's only going to grow more intense in how he feels about her as time goes on, she's not some damsel in distress where she needs to be rescued at all times. And yet each of them is someone who is probably going to need the other's help at different times. And we see that in this episode. So I think that's really genuinely lovely. I also want to touch on how funny the granny ghost and the creepy ass banana aliens were in this episode. I'm sorry, I can't think of any other way to describe them than banana aliens because of the referencing that they do, because they were just creepy as balls. But both of these situations were fantastic. I mean, these villains don't have super long backstories or anything, but the fact that they basically want each of the characters for the same thing, and that nobody here is getting out unscathed as far as sexualization, which is really weird because usually that's something that happens to girls, and to see it happen to girls and guys here was actually kind of unique and refreshing. And to see it utilized mainly for humor and not to just absolutely squick everybody out was really cool. And the fact that, like, we currently have this situation where Okarun's balls are literally missing. Like, that's freaking hilarious. And I mean, he might want to go get those back. And I'm sure that's going to be one of the things we're going to be working on as the series progresses. From a writing standpoint, one of the things that I am going to be curious to see as we move forward is whether the situation we are in is going to be directly about going after Granny immediately to try and resolve that problem, or whether for a while at least we're going to see these two tap into their new abilities and work on their overall communication and chemistry as a team, dealing with the fact that they now know about these supernatural happenings in more of an enemy of the week flavor. We'll have to see just how it goes down, because I am somebody who has not read the source material, so I am coming at you completely blind from an anime perspective. So that will be interesting too. Anyway, I super loved this. I thought this had an absolutely fantastic start. I cannot wait for next week. I love the opening music too. I have to say that. Sometimes opening music in an anime, it's like, I don't care, I'll skip it. Sometimes there are ones where I really love them, and this is definitely in the really love it category. I really love that opening. Anyway, those are my thoughts. I'd love to know what you guys are thinking, so drop a comment below and let me know, and I'll talk to you in the next video. See you later. Bye!